Okay, we started recording here. Let me know when you're ready, John.
Yep, we are good.
Awesome. Well, welcome out to our first Barker Park Committee. We're very appreciative of everyone that's come out to join this committee. We've got Rod Barker with us. We've got Scott Barker. We've got Sarah Lansing here. And then we have some public that's in the audience as well. Not just regular public, but Barker public. So that's awesome. So anyways, I'm Councilman JD Dalpass. I've met most of you. I've met you a little bit in passing in some of our meetings, but I'm very appreciative that everyone has taken up this commitment and is glad to be involved in this process. So just to start things out, I just want to kind of present that my goal with this is to keep, especially this first meeting, is as simple as possible. Let's keep it easy at the beginning. Let's not dig into the weeds too much. And we're just going to work towards certain action items to make sure that Barker Park actually becomes a park someday. We know that there has been some really grand and awesome plans of what it could become someday, but there's a big financial part to that, and it's not going to happen at once. So my goal, and the mayor shares this vision, by the way, is to make sure that it gets done in a very phased approach. So we do bits and pieces at a time to where we can actually see progress and be happy about it. So anyways, I will go ahead and have the invocation and or pledge of allegiance offered by Sarah Lansing at this point. So if you want to do either invocation or a thought, that would be great.
Sure, we're just gonna sit to a short thought for today. There's a term that's coined by an urban sociologist, Ray Oldenburg, in the 1980s, known as the third place. The third place refers to places that people spend time at frequently that are not their home, the first place, or their work and school, the second place. These third places are public spaces on neutral ground where people can gather and interact, a place to build community. Third places are usually free from the expectations of productivity. Some examples of third places are cafes, coffee shops, churches, community centers, parks, and libraries. The North Branch library next to us even has a conference room called the Third Place. It's an open room that's always open. People can gather with friends, colleagues, work, to study or read, and you can't block it off. So it's always open. I think we have a unique opportunity in North Ogden to turn a field, an open field, into a new community space. My hope is that we'll become a third place, among other things. There are many people that feel passionate about Barker Park, and that all that's become, and I'm excited to be a small part of that. That's my small thought.
Very good. Do you want to lead us in the pledge as well?
Allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Very good. Thank you. I love that thought. I haven't heard that one before, and I love the idea of it being a third place for our community members. That's really cool. I love that. Thank you. Oh, yes. Yeah, well, good time to move, because that is our first agenda item. This rendering that is on the screen right now was provided to us by the Build Barker Park 501c3. So this is their current initial vision of what the nature reserve might look like. And so, I'll just go ahead and stand up and just point out some of the key pieces, but we've got a few things going on here at the top of the screen, and we'll talk about this today. There could potentially be pickleball courts, but we're going to talk about that in the meeting. Did you remember what the section is right here at the top?
They were doing two different areas. The northern one area, north or south, was kind of focused on the settlers that came in the 1800s, and the one on the south was focused on the people who were already here.
Yes, that's right. Yes, so it's like you've got one section that's more pioneer type of heritage and one that's more the indigenous people section.
That part also included the Indians.
What's that?
Indians,
Yes.
Native Americans.
Yes, Native Americans, yes, yep. So go ahead and pan down. And so on this section, we've got this middle section is like actual, mowed, really nice grass like that you would see in a regular park. And the surrounding part of it is all going to be more of a natural grass. John was just mentioning, and I'm just stealing this from you because you just mentioned this before the meeting, but the natural grass that's all surrounding it is going to be a lot easier to maintain and water, and it's not going to be as much of a burden to the city staff to keep up and looking good. And then this section will be more focused on, if you want to go throw a frisbee or want to be around it. And then this bottom area is intended to be kind of an educational place that has all of the different plants and species that, would have originated in the area, just to make sure that we are going back to the roots of what might have been sitting in Barker Park back in, 1700s and 1800s. And then also to be discussed is there's a possibility that we have a small little learning amphitheater that's at the bottom of this little area, this island area. And we'll get into that. So does anyone have any, even though I'm truly not an expert at this, I know some of you are even probably more well-versed than I am, but are there any initial questions on this initial vision that was given to us?
It's not necessarily a question. On this map, it still shows that parking on Barker Parkway, which can't be there.
Yeah, that's a good question.
No, it's not a question. It can't be there. That's not a question. It's a safety issue. John, you can approach that better than I can.
Right, and so this plan has not gone through any review process.
No.
And so those technical things like that you can't back out onto a public street that's in our ordinance, those will need to be brought into compliance. Yeah.
So when we other than that, a lot of that stuff was okay. But other than that, we're going to have to look at providing for parking, because the original Barker Park, if you remember, we did that. We had a place we were going to put the chambers. They always got mad because I called it a barn. It wasn't a barn, so we did fruit packing.
The packing shed.
Don't call it a barn, don't get mad. Yeah. We have parking around that, because it's got it down off of Barker Parkway.
Mhm.
And that's something that need to be looked at.
Yeah, and I do appreciate your question. That's actually, we had John and I had a pre-meeting with Grant Protzman, who of course has been a big part of the Bill Barker Park Committee, or Bill Barker Park 501c3. And that was one of the first things that was mentioned by Scott Hess, we were trying to figure out, we didn't think that parking was going to work. It's literally just an initial rendering. So that's a very good thought. And that's your planning commissioner coming out in you.
No, that's working on two different park committees and the planning commissions.
Okay, perfect.
I mean,
That's why you're here.
We originally did the Barker Park one back in 2015. We were told we could not have the park in there. That's when we moved it down into the island further around. We was going to have that fruit packing thing, remodel that, use it for, wedding reception, family reunions and that type of stuff. So the parking would be there down off the road. So the road would provide parking on here. So there's going to have to be some minor changes. Just that, we don't have to do that now. It's just a thought we would think about.
Yeah, well, I honestly love that you're starting with the thought, because with you starting with it, it's not going to be missed. So we appreciate it. Sarah?
Now you talked about like the 11, 13s and Gs, the middle island. The 17, is that ones that are there? Is that trees? Like, is that part of the plan? And are those, I assume those dotted lines are those trails?
17's a trail.
And are they already there? So is it done?
So they're kind of there. They're like sections maybe overgrown, exactly.
And are those part of the ones that they've been working on for the last 2 years, or are they separate?
Well, I've been to only maybe one or two of the cleanups, and one of the cleanups that I went to, we were kind of blazing a path through there with weed whackers and tools.
But those they are part of this planning, is that correct?
Yeah, they're existing trails that, you know, I'm sure could be improved through this process to get them to where it's easier to navigate and everything, but all of the volunteer sessions that we've already have been down in that hollow area and have been trying to clean up. And, you know, there's a bench down there, for example, that was overgrown with weeds that we knocked down with a weed whacker and got looking better. And yeah, but that has been, as far as I know, that's been a lot of the focus.
The north side is really well done. I know Rod, at one time, did Rod on the north side, if I remember right, Rod?
Right next to my home, there's not many problematic weeds there.
No, on the south side, it not used as much. You can walk through, you lose a trail here and there, but so it could be worked on.
Yeah. And this is kind of an informal committee, Peggy, so go ahead.
These are pathways, because if you call it a trail, then legally
yeah,
it has to
right.
be a certain width and
Right.
wheelchair accessible. If they are pathways, they can just be winding ways
That's-
through the trees.
ADA accessible.
That's a good
So
point.
that's a verbal
Okay.
Okay,
their paths.
strike the record. I did not say trails. I said
Pathways.
No, but that's a good point. Thank you. Appreciate that.
But just, I'm gonna jump into. So the whole purpose and kind of the direction from the council for this group and the public process that this group is meant to facilitate is, let's take all the stuff that's been talked about and whittle it down to a plan that the council can actually fund. And so there might be people, like, I'll tell you my thoughts is that I feel like there's at least an area of the hollow that we could make a trail that can become ADA accessible, but it's not going to be everywhere. And it might just go to that kind of fork down where the F is. And then the stuff that branches off to the east and the north are probably not going to be accessible, and that's fine. But what we want to do is take all the ideas, keep as close as we can to the Grassley plan, the plan that the committee did in 2015-17, and this plan, and come up with something that accomplishes all those things together and is specific enough that the council can now say, how much will it cost and how do we fund it? Because I think that the council in the next couple of years will have some money to put towards this project specifically, and it is becoming their focus based on my conversations with that group. So.
And Neil's talked to me as well. He said we're starting to work on some money for it.
Yeah, and my intention as well, just to be clear, is, I mean, there was a lot of work back in 2015. You look at the rendering that's, I don't know if John has it, but there was, you know, this version of the plan that you guys all worked on heavily back then. And who knows if it will look exactly like this in the future, but we want to look at bits and pieces of this that can be completed over time. It's just not all going to happen at once, so.
No, we did have, we broke it down in phases, so we think it, and we got it broke down in phases. We presented to the city council back then, we've done 4 phases. So, yeah, we knew the money's out there. Back then, it was going to be like $8 million to do it, but now it's like 20 million.
I think that's a good general estimate, but yeah.
There's things in there that just, these are money-wise, just won't happen.
I think that that's very possible, yes.
And that is possible that there might not be money, and I'm going to say the splash pad, right?
Yeah.
That the council might say, instead of spending, I'm going to throw out a number, I don't know if this is right, 500,000 on a splash pad, we would rather do these other improvements first
Agreed.
and maybe leave it open as an opportunity in the future. But that's the purpose we hope for this group is, let's go from the 10 and 20,000 square foot or foot level that we were, and let's get down to the 100-foot level and say, you know what? We do want planter boxes here. We want paths here, and present that to the council in a way that then they can say, okay, and now this is how we will fund it.
I agree. So I think, so we're going to focus on the island.
that's what we were hoping to do first, was the island. And I think the reason that we wanted to focus on the island first was, I mean, you look at the amount of space, it's far less space than along 2600 that needs to be completed over there. So we would start there as a small phasing approach to Barker Park. And then the 2600 section would be years down the road after that, I'm sure. And so that's kind of the intention, I believe.
Okay.
So any other comments or questions that are floating around right now? Okay. So I have an initial set of questions moving on to the next agenda item. When I met with Grant in December, we just had a few initial questions that we want to make sure everyone feels comfortable with and that we can start moving towards something. So even just something as simple as this little nature reserve that we were looking at down there. You know, does anyone have any suggestions for a name? I mean, it's hard to say on the spot, but be thinking about that. It could be a nature reserve that's focused on, you know, if we could combine like indigenous peoples and pioneer theming or some sort of naming around that or something. That's my first question, is if you guys have any opinions on maybe what this little reserve section could be called. And you might know just off of some historical stuff too.
Nice.
And so the park will be called Barker Park. And so there may be things like, right now, I think we typically say the amphitheater at Barker Park. And so this would be, this area at Barker Park is an option.
Historical landmarks of Barker Park. Okay. Now, these things can be moved around. Originally, we had overlooking Fruitland Drive, because that's where the Indians originally camped, was out there above Fruitland Drive. They didn't camp on the island.
Mm-hmm.
So we put it down there over Fruitland Drive, because that's where the encampment was.
Meaning
So we
over in-
recognize the Indians more.
In the western edge of the park.
Yes,
Above Ryan's house.
Okay.
that's right. That was our original intent. It doesn't have to be that way. That's just what our thoughts were.
I don't know, John, I don't know about that. I mean, clearly if that was truly where they were congregating
They were
and,
truly there,
Yeah.
our ancestors.
That's a
were camped there.
consideration. Yeah. I mean, the only thing that would throw a wrench in that is the, you know, Bill Barker Park, 501c3 that like gave us this initial rendering. They decided we're gonna put it on this island section. So if you feel strongly that it would have to be that, then we'd have to consider.
I don't. I was just, that's what our thoughts were. I don't, it's just original. It's not a strong thing.
You know, and what would be cool that we could do as part of this little nature reserve area? The plan is to have plaques and educational stuff all around. So there could be a plaque that says, hey, this is the area that we're celebrating indigenous peoples, but did you know that it's actually 300 feet to the northeast of here or to the west of here or whatever? That would work.
We could do that. It's not a big deal. It's just, we recognize all this, what we've done.
And it can be done in multiple locations in the park. I think the idea was that the number 11 and number 10 will be play areas or themed playgrounds, that one would be indigenous people, one would be pioneer. And the council may say, well, you know what, we prefer one play area that's, you know, maybe geared towards the 1800s, and it's not one group or another, if that makes sense.
That might be a financial thing.
And then and the future expansion, then the was it, did we call it a camp or what was it?
What?
Weren't they gonna do some sort of structures down there?
They put a small amphitheater. Oh, they were, one time they're talking about rebuilding that Sagebrush Academy up on the hill a little bit.
Was there like, were they doing,
Is that the,
Oh, down there, there's gonna be a big, what's it called?
Ramada?
let's see, what was number 4? Indian encampment.
Yeah,
And so I think that so this is, all these things can still be incorporated.
Mhm.
And so the whole purpose of this committee is look at the whole park eventually, but with the focus of the 501c3 on the island, the thought was get that design done and then turn to the rest of the park and get it approved. And
So the islands will be real easy to combine the two. It'd be real easy.
you know, yeah, and they have, like, if you look at this plan, the Grassley plan and this plan has the most detail on the type of landscaping and the locations of trails. And so it really is honing in closer to what we hope to have, or what we think the council will want to approve. Not meaning a plan that can be presented to the council to be approved.
So going off of your historic, you said maybe name it something down the historical route. It could be historical people / nature reserve, some, center or something like that.
What do you guys do with plants? You know more about them than I do.
With the plants,
Mhm.
well, there's a variety. They wanted to do some pioneer or early Utah plant areas. Grant says we're gonna put in noxious weeds in one area.
I spent 17 years getting rid of noxious.
But that's a hesitation, because all they do is, if they go to seed, well,
They were digging them out again.
Yeah, maybe that's one to be debated, I guess.
that's one.
Noxious weeds, that's awesome. So we don't need to settle on it, but let's do this. Let's say, because no one's gonna come up with it on the spot here. Let's have everyone marinate on it until the next meeting. And if you can have 1 or 2 ideas for a name, and then we can just put our heads together and we'll probably say, oh yeah, actually Sarah's name sounds the best, or, we can kind of vote on it and say that's would be a good thing.
But maybe as you think about it, since got about 2, 3 different things on that island, we have to have 3 different names depending on the location. One's gonna be heritage, one's gonna be natural plants. Those will be 2 different separate areas.
We had a name with the 501c3 of Barker Nature and Historical Preserve,
Okay.
which it took me a long time to learn. 'Cause
And there's no reason there's no reason we couldn't use that name and go with it. The committee could say, oh, actually, sounds great, let's go with it. So,
Do you have each plan like printed out or something that we can take home and look at?
we can get some copies right
Yeah.
after the meeting. Let's get some
Okay.
copies for you to take it back, because we've got the 2015 plan here. I've got the Grassley plan that was clear back from 2002-ish or whatever it was. And so, yeah, we can send a bunch of the
Yeah.
illustrations back with you. So, Peggy, we'll probably think about that name, that, if the 501c3 had a name that is potential, we can put that on the list and then come with some ideas next time as well. Even if it's just one name and we can all discuss them, that'd be great. So I don't want to belabor that item. Let's move on to the next question that kind of wanted to make sure that we got posed. I don't know if this will be, surprising to anyone, but there has been, talks of doing a pickleball court in this area. So if you look at the north part of this, map, there is a section for pickleball courts. Is that something that you guys believe should be discussed and approved through this committee? I'm open to your thoughts. Is that something that you would like discussed and voted upon through this format?
Does it interfere with the original, like plans or not settlement, but with the,
Historical.
no, the agreement with the Barker Park? I've heard from a couple people that it denied recreation. Is that incorrect?
No, the recreation part is no ball diamonds, no organized sports on it.
So is pickleball an organized sport?
That probably could be debatable, I guess.
That's the question mark.
yeah, it's-
So, but like, is it is it like, meaning like it can't be reserved but for like teens? Is that the intention, or what was the intention of that? That
I think if
agreement?
you're having competitive team like, you're gonna have 10 or 15 courts
Yeah,
all right together. I think 2 or 3 together here and there.
pretty tough to be.
You couldn't really hold a tournament
Right.
on this small
I think
section.
that becomes more recreational and family friendly.
Yeah.
Okay.
In
So if
the
it's,
2015 plan, they're just above your parents' house
Yeah, they're
east.
over on 2,600.
Yeah, they were on 2600.
Yeah, that's
I
right.
don't mind, I do the pickleball court there, 'cause it kind of doesn't fit in with the theme of that part of the park.
Mhm.
Not saying it's a bad thing.
is the intention of having the pickleball courts there because it's requested, or is it just like throw it because it'll get people to come?
If I had to guess, I think the intention of why it's on this right now is because pickleball has just become incredibly popular. So I think that that's why it's made its way on here. I mean, pickleball was obviously picking up steam back in 2015 since it was on that original
Maybe a
plan.
couple of courts.
Yeah. So, but I guess, John, do you know, was there any very specific reason that the pickleball courts were, envisioned on this area?
There's at least one member of the 501c3 who's also a big fan of the pickleball courts and wants more in North Ogden. And I think that was, the thought was, we can raise some money to help get this facility constructed here because they've got folks they can go after for some donations.
It's that's another reason why the parking would put the pickleball courts, put where the parking's at. So, part of the pickleball court can go up there, but you're gonna have to rethink the parking around the pickleball court.
Yeah, I mean, certainly, I mean, your first point of the meeting was valid. I mean, there's no way the parking can be as it is on this initial rendering, so it's impossible to believe that every piece of this park is going to be exactly where it was on this initial.
Which we didn't intend it to be.
Yeah, so who knows if that pickleball section gets shifted a few hundred feet to the west of there or something like that, because parking lot needs to be somewhere. So it's really difficult to say, but as long as you guys as a committee feel comfortable, it seems like the comfort level of a pickleball court in this section is, I mean, straw poll, pretty comfortable, kind of comfortable for it to be on this part of the park,
Kind of.
kind of, okay?
I think I go with Scott. I don't know, like, without the context, I'm not sure why it's there or what the intention is, but I'm not opposed to it being there if it has a good reason. But if it's just to raise money, I don't know, like, if it's supposed to be a historical park, I don't know, like, adding
Mhm.
pickleballs.
So Barker Park, historical nature / pickleball court.
Well, there you got your name. There you go. Peggy, go
There's
ahead.
a lot of controversy about the noise on pickleball courts,
Mhm.
where they've been put in by houses.
Yeah, there's an article about it. There was one park out in, I think it was Tooele or Grantsville out that way, where it was, the edge of the court was about 30 feet from the back of a house. And the
Mhm.
National Pickleball Association recommends 120 or more is kind of the standard.
So you're saying this wouldn't be an issue for neighbors
Well,
because it's in the
it-
island? or
It's
would-
still going to have a sound impact for sure. You're going to hear it in that neighborhood. So,
There's
But-
a neighbor that's probably 100 yards from my house that I hear them when they take the ball.
Is that
It
Brett-
doesn't bother me.
is that
but I
Brett
hear it.
Jones?
Yeah.
Yeah, I hear him. often.
I hear them. It doesn't bother me.
Mhm.
It's probably 100 yards away.
But they don't start at 7 AM and
No,
quit
they
at
don't.
10 PM.
No.
With lights
When their
and,
kids get- when
With
their
lights.
kids-
They sometimes,
when their kids get
sometimes they have
older,
lights on it.
when their kids get older, they will.
yeah.
They're not teenagers yet.
Can we ask the 501c3 to define why it's on there?
Let's do it.
'Cause I think if they have a good reason, I'm not
Yep.
opposed.
I'm gonna just put that as a note to ask, Grant and team exactly what the intention was. I have a strong impression that it was because the sport is becoming popular and because we want to start to get the park done, but I also understand, like, if we want to make this a nature preserve, is this kind of awkward that it's sitting here? I don't know. So it's a good question. I'm gonna ask that specifically to the,
If you're
to the
talking
team.
about noise, the island's not a good place at all. Because it's still going to have houses close. The other best place going back where the chicken coops at the top, because it's way back off the all roads. Otherwise, no matter where you put it, it's gonna be close to houses. Oh, I don't know if that's an issue or not. I don't go around pickleball courts.
And, honestly, from a financial perspective, if the pickleball courts got scrapped off of this version and it's truly just the nature preserve, then it's gonna be much more easy to get completed with limited
Unless-
finances that are available,
Unless that's a donor that.
Unless
Unless they want. to
John,
sponsor
you're not aware that it's not like a full-on donation of a court or anything, right?
No, Councilman Severing, who's also on the committee, is also involved with the group that raised a bunch of money for the Pleasant View courts and is interested in raising money for our courts here. And they have started fundraising for the Lomond View courts. And, so right now, I think they raised close to $10,000 last summer. And so they're just trying to, I think Councilman Severing will be the right one to ask about the logic behind, or not logic, but the idea and the thought behind it.
Yeah, and I will specifically mention it to Councilman Severing and Grant, like, it was just a question because it might have not felt as natural because this was going to be the nature section. So I'll ask and see what the comment is there. Are we okay to move on to the next question? Okay, so the next question that I wanted to go over is in several versions, including the most recent version that the 501c3 provided to us, there's a small amphitheater that's intended for learning. And, I don't think it's envisioned to be anything grandiose by any means. It's just supposed to be, if there was a class from one of the local elementaries that's visiting the park, they have a place where somebody can speak to them and talk about the indigenous people and pioneer people that came before. So is there any fundamental issue or problem with doing a small amphitheater in that corner of the island? Okay,
I don't have any opposition. I just wonder how often it would be used.
who knows? Yeah, I mean,
Pretty rare.
It seems like in today's climate, there's not many field trips to a nature area.
mhm.
No,
Like I said, I'm not opposed to it philosophically.
Honestly, I'm kind of the opposite. I think that we don't have a lot of places that encourage people to gather. And I think if it wasn't cost prohibitive, if it's not gonna be a huge expense or something like that, I think encouraging people to gather is a good goal.
but that amphitheater would be pretty cheap to put in.
Compared to a lot of things it would be.
Yeah.
Really, because it's already a natural slope to it.
It's gonna be like split logs or something like that.
Yeah.
The cost is an issue, just they still have to need some upkeep to it.
Yeah,
I think if you marketed it as a family gathering or something like that you could bring, 40 people at, family reunions or something like that, I think it would be helpful.
We
Rather-
want a big screen or projector.
It's a natural spot for it.
Yeah.
Your solar panel, or your solar energy generator.
yeah. Does anyone know, just because I can't remember if there's a history on this, for the small amphitheater that's been envisioned back in 2015 or now, what you mentioned, maybe like a split log scenario where you have logs set up that is kind of an amphitheater that way, or has it ever been intended to be maybe a small, great excavated rocks that are sitting there that you tiered up a little bit? Does anyone remember an intention behind how it would look?
I don't.
Or has it not gone anywhere?
So in the
Plus
Grassley,
logs.
Yeah.
In the Grassley plan, it calls it a rock amphitheater.
Right.
So it calls it the rock amphitheater and then the lawn amphitheater, so it had two. But logs would be right in line with that, basically something very natural
Mhm.
for people to sit on.
I mean,
They're more comfortable than rocks.
Yeah, that's true.
I think we don't have to call it an amphitheater if people are worried. that-
Learning Cove.
Yeah, or something like that. Like you can not call it an amphitheater and be the same. And then you don't have, North Ogden's building another amphitheater. Like you just don't have that discussion if you don't call it that, you know?
Yeah, that might help out with some past trauma there, so.
Yeah.
Yeah, Learning Cove.
Yeah, and then you can just mark it as, or a gathering place, or,
Yeah.
something like that.
It's a pretty good starting point for me.
That's right, it is, huh?
I'm gonna put in the notes that we're gonna call it a Learning Cove. Learning Cove, alcove, something like that. Okay, let me just make sure those were the main things that I wanted to make sure that we started to hit. So I will do a follow-up with Scott Hess, who's our planning director, to start the conversation of parking, because that's important, and I don't think it's gonna be like that. So, I will take the action to discuss that with Scott Hess. No problem there. Another thing is, I think we do need to be mindful for all of this that gets built out. There's going to be a responsibility for city staff to maintain it. And so I know there's a lot of people that are worried that the more that we build this out and the more that becomes of it, once this Barker Park, it's like 30 acres, once it fully builds out, it's gonna take probably an incredible amount of staff to maintain it. It might be one additional parks worker that's hired to be able to start maintaining this, or it might be 2 parks workers by the time it's all the way completed. I know they have all the different sections of North Ogden that they have to take care of, and they probably wouldn't be fully dedicated to just this, but that's a consideration that we want to be careful about, mindful about, because we don't want it to get so out of control that the expenses of that side get too bad.
If there's a point they had a place for storage for the equipment for the park. And off Fruitland Drive, going into the amphitheaters, have storage building, was planned to go in there. To store all the equipment to take care of the park.
Mhm.
That's costly because it's just for that park, which could be. Cause you're not gonna want to drive some little lawnmower in there.
Yeah. That's a consideration for sure. Let's see. Oh, the other thing that we talked about, John, was we need to give sufficient notice, because of course this area is currently being farmed right now or used by Max. And so we need to give him proper notice, which I believe, John, was at a minimum 6 months notice, right? At least.
More than six.
That's Lyman that uses that.
Lyman, okay, I'm sorry.
Sorry,
At least a
Yeah,
they're
year.
cousins.
I think it's at least a year.
Yeah, I was told 12 last time.
So we just need to, I mean, this is gonna take a while. I don't think this is gonna happen overnight, but we just need to continue to remember that we wanna be fair to them to say, okay, things are getting real here. We plan on having this ready on, July of 2027 or whatever it is, just throwing it out there. So we just gotta be mindful of that. And
A good example is that at this point, we're not gonna do anything next growing season.
No.
oh, for
But
sure.
in theory, we could the year after, and so if this group makes enough progress and the council buys into what this group's proposing, then it might be time to give them notice on the island, for example, and say, hey, don't count on working the island in 2025.
Rod, is any of Lyman's kids doing any of the farming?
John does.
John does, okay. Good, for Lyman, it almost could be cut it all farming, I don't have to deal with this anymore, because he's getting older.
Well, he doesn't get very much hay from that spot.
No, he doesn't, there's very little from there. In fact, they keep it up, it actually keeps up really well. He does a real good job with it. Really.
So hopefully that'll just be relieved when we know that that small section doesn't continue to need to be.
I'm sure he'll just be indifferent toward it.
Okay,
Yeah, he'll just go, well, I knew it was going to happen someday,
Yeah.
here it is.
yeah. So,
We got a lot out of it for a long time.
sure, yeah. Well, and I honestly, my personal opinion is that it's been a win-win. I mean, because it looks great. It looks beautiful. So instead of it just being overgrown with weeds, all of these years it's been taken care of. So
He does a good
I
job.
feel like it's been a win-win for them and the public. So,
Been good for kids to see how farming used to be,
yeah,
actually, farming took place.
yeah, yeah. We don't need to have anything, but does anyone have any ideas for what you would like to discuss in the next meeting? It doesn't have to be any big grand plans, but as you guys have been thinking about starting this committee, is there anything that you would like to make sure that we try to address either in next month's meeting or within the next few months? What, I'm just trying to be as simple to this process as possible, and I don't want to overwhelm everyone, but I do want to take anyone's feedback of what you'd like to hear.
Well, I think we're to the point, because so much has already been done. This is what's going to be on it, that feasible financially can be put on it. This should be hard, the type of plants, now, you talk about taking care of, I know the native plants that come up with grasses, you don't have to mow very often. Okay, right, so that keeps less, and doesn't grow fast, water is very lower. Those type of things may be looked at.
I personally would like to hear from either people on the committees or the current committee that's doing it. I think we can read about it. But there's a lot of things that probably aren't said or are implied. And I think that if they had a 10 or 15-minute presentation or something, I think we could get more nuance of like those things of, like the purpose and their vision, rather than just reading about what it is. So, and maybe we could answer some questions.
So probably, we could invite Grant Croston to give a presentation. Grant is incredibly enthusiastic, so he could go for he could do a 3-hour presentation on this. So I'll have to say, Grant, we need a 10 to 15-minute presentation on this, So, let's do that. I will ask him for that.
You tell me 3, you'll get it 15.
I'll do 3. Yeah, I'll say 3. I'll say 3. Good idea.
I have questions too, and Peggy probably knows the answer to this far more than I do. For me, I want a family-friendly park.
Right.
Barker Park right now is not family-friendly. I mean, I don't want to be negative. I'm not a negative person. We have one little playground with one little remodel.
So small.
That disturbs the entire park. Now, I know this is kind of a nature and historical area. But one question I have is how family friendly is it really? And I know there are things for family there. We've got the Native American playground area, we've got the pioneer playground area.
It's not as friendly.
But I'd like to envision, when we say that, what are we talking about as far as children to play on or with?
You look at what we did in 2015, like more family friendly.
And I'd like to see at least a picnic area. Or maybe a couple of small ones covered where the family can come in the shade.
I agree, Mark. That's my parents' intent. The intent of my parents was it was a family-oriented park for families to come and play and have a good time.
And to me, when I think of park, I think of 2 things. One is ball fields. The other is family friendly to come and play and enjoy.
That's why we don't call it a park. Because then people think it's all Kentucky bluegrass
Sure.
and.
Sure. And it makes sense.
I agree.
But I'd like to see it, if there's at least a few things to be incorporated in there, that a mom could bring her kids and during the day and they can play on those playgrounds. They can take a walk through the nature garden areas. But
We have
also
quite
they
a
can,
few places where we talked about
We did.
putting picnic tables.
Yeah.
On the original in 2015, we had a couple of those. We got the amphitheater, we got some other
Yeah.
small areas along there.
right,
we had those in there along a couple of play areas, which I agree with you 100%. Which we could get it to work into that.
I think a marriage between the two would be ideal. It can be worked out.
I agree with you 100%, Rod.
I think that, you know, the 501c3, we need to get that to present. So good point. They'll probably tell us a lot more than I know just off of this map, but I mean, they have examples of things that can be done that would be family friendly. So it's not that they don't have a plan. I don't know exactly where this would be positioned on the island area, but it says right here, you know, it says phase 2, the hollows and the island area. So I think they have plans to have this somewhere
They do.
here.
Mhm.
So just to feel reassured, we'll have them present it to us and make sure we can ask all kinds of questions to them.
Did you have a place they originally wanted that? I don't think they did. That was a playground for the kids. I don't think they did.
It was
Discussed.
when Grant talked about it, the stuff that's shown was the area that's 10 and 11. The circles, those are the type of themes they were thinking,
Sure.
more of a tactile play as opposed to plastic.
Okay.
Which I like that idea.
Yeah.
I do too.
It doesn't look like they're very big, but I know it's just a.
Yeah.
Maybe it's hard to envision just because, yeah,
I live
that
right
drawing.
there.
Yeah.
And back to the
I know that area.
the conversation, and I know Sarah and I have talked about this, and she could probably give you the perspective from the Parks and Trails Committee, because this is kind of like a grouping
Sure.
of people from different groups.
Sure.
But in looking at like the 2015 plan or the Grassley plan, the idea is kind of the one idea could be have some smaller components that are tactile for small groups, but maybe there should be a signature large tactile playground that's not on the island, but it's in the other area. And we say, hey, this, instead of a splash pad, we'd rather have this. Or maybe in conjunction with the splash pad, we have these components like Thunder, whatever it is down in St. George.
That's an awesome part.
But, you know,
Yeah.
and I think that
Yeah.
this group has the ability to say, this is really where we want to take what the 501c3 is talking about, what Parks and Trails is talking about, what the Barker family is talking about, and present something to the council that's 100-foot view and say, we are ready to build.
Yeah,
In
and I
a
don't wanna,
Bowery
and like, I
area,
don't
so
wanna
you can
disregard
have
at
a
all
group.
anything other past groups have done.
No,
I have nothing but gratitude, respect for what they've done.
but yeah, it's gotta be a place, if you're going to have that there, there's got a place for kids. There's really gotta be a place for kids to come and play.
And for them, often one of the ramadas, to be able to go down and explore a pathway,
Mhm.
not a trail, but a
Yeah.
pathway.
Pathway.
Where they could go down into the hollow and walk through the trees and things. That's Scott's boyhood that he wants to help with.
Mhm.
My-
And
I
really,
think my grandkids do it all the time, and they always think, oh, we wish we'd grown up when you grew up.
yeah, oh, man, isn't it true? But I think the plastic playgrounds that you see in North Ogden, they're a diamond, they're everywhere.
Right.
So we don't necessarily
Those
want
little
that
drawing,
in
those
this, yeah.
Photos I saw, those look like they'd be great.
Yeah.
Who had the pioneer was not caves, but one down that way, really beautiful. Went down south with a different playground. It was really cool. Logs here, logs there.
There's one
Really neat.
so John has the one that's in Farmington, that's in
Oh, yeah.
Farmington Station, that
That's
kind
the
of just,
Yeah,
you know, it is truly a playground, but it's all capped
More
in a way
natural
that
looking.
looks natural.
uh-huh.
Yeah,
Sarah has done so much research on playgrounds
That's cool.
that having a presentation on playgrounds, Sarah's your person. She knows playgrounds across the Wasatch Front better than anybody else.
but like this, that's what I would envision up in this area,
Uh-huh.
is the more natural looking.
Cause she could have a presentation, have pictures we could actually put with this for the city council, see here's what we envision to be there.
Mhm.
And not just one and answer, but the natural playgrounds, is here's a playground we'd like
Yeah.
here. And she'd have all those
Yeah,
pictures.
have
You
that
could
kind of
really do
stuff.
well with it,
That would be awesome.
Wouldn't it?
Yeah.
That'd be awesome.
So do you want to start with the 501c3 let's start with them presenting.
Okay.
And they're gonna answer all of the questions that we have about the play, but clearly they are intending to have this be very family friendly with all these log fun activities and, yeah, so I feel good about that.
Those pictures helps my concern a lot.
Yeah,
Um,
yes, they've worked tirelessly on, I mean, this is like 30 pages pretty much. It's crazy. So I think that we'll feel more comfortable after they present to us next time. That's about it for me, and I didn't want to belabor it. What do you have for us, Sarah?
One of the suggestions I have is come spring, when we can actually go out there, I think that it would be a worthwhile thing to actually go with the community to the spot.
Mm,
I
yeah,
think you can look at that, but if we actually walk to see how big the area is, or, even with, the 501(c)(3) or something like that, or even if it's just by ourselves, I think it's probably important to not just look at the area on paper, to actually go and see what it looks like.
It'd be nice if.
Yeah.
Like I said, I live right there. It'd be nice if in early spring we do that.
Mhm.
You can't spray paint,
Just spray it.
at least maybe try to just indicate
Well,
some size of
Measure it out,
areas.
yeah,
And we have the
Just to
water,
have an idea.
we have the water-based paint that you can use.
that'd work really well.
Yeah.
It'll,
that would be
it'll
really
wear off.
cool, really cool.
But
idea.
just to give a visual.
Yeah.
Just to make that area. it would
Yeah, and
be-
if they have like, this is gonna be, 150 pieces, or,
Yeah.
a third of an acre or something like that, I think that might help our visual things, and not discount some of the things
Yeah,
that we
because
realize how big it
Because
is.
if those yellow circles are to scale, that's not very big.
No, that's true.
They're probably a lot bigger than that visually.
Mhm.
in reality.
Yeah.
They wanted to do Sagebrush Academy, we'll just go over and get the car dealers, car guy's house and bring it over and set it. They'll take to their house.
Yeah.
That was the Sagebrush Academy on the road.
Did the 2015 committee have a final report?
We did, I don't know what happened to it.
Did we ever find
But-
anyone that had the final report for it?
So the final report was the council meeting where they came and presented to the council. And then the council said, we'll talk about this again, and they didn't.
Do we know was it recorded?
Yes,
Like,
it's
who would
recorded.
find that?
And then it's not an actual document report, but that's what
I mean,
generated.
was it recorded like audio or?
Yeah, I think it's on YouTube,
Okay,
but it's this sheet.
Yeah, we can find out.
This is basically what they presented and talked through.
can we get a date so we can
Yep.
look that up and see it? So I think that would help me. If I can watch the hour presentation or whatever they did.
I don't
and then we
think,
can
I don't think back then they recorded, were they, John?
I think they were. I'm looking right now.
'Cause I know I Googled Parker Park and then I found notes, I found city council meeting notes. And the maps, and then I have those recordings.
I don't want to discount anything they did just because it wasn't put down on paper. So, or it was just forgotten,
Yeah, and I don't think that there was any negative intentions anywhere, that it got lost on by the wayside. It's just, I think everyone has, all these years, I think everyone's been so overwhelmed because it's like, where are we gonna get the money?
Well, all of us at that point thought that plan had been approved by the city council.
Mhm.
Okay, we thought that plan had been approved until this year. That's where we stood,
Mhm.
and we had it broke down in phases. But that's what I know, John and I talked, there was just, there's so much on there financially, just had to be set aside.
Well, and it doesn't, it's not like it has to, I really would hate to lose a lot of the vision that came from 2015.
We-
That would be a
yeah.
total waste,
We put a
so,
lot of stuff in there.
So-
Yeah.
so there's no reason that in the future, yeah.
There's no reason
We
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 shouldn't.
put a lot, but it wasn't just the committee that did that. Peggy, remember we had people in the community? They got up and helped us with the plan.
Mhm.
They stood around the tables with us.
Yeah, I love that.
It was really cool.
That's great.
Only had one guy walk out mad, man, they moved me. Cause he goes, well, where's the church supposed to have playing the softball games? I go find a park. Oh, well, aren't you going to provide a place on here?
Oh, really, a
Church
theme
have
park.
softball? I go, no, it's not meant for softball diamonds. So what are we supposed to do? go talk to the church. And he got so mad and he walked out.
Sounds fun.
Not necessarily softball anymore.
Yeah.
No, they don't. It's kinda
Well,
sad. It is.
do we have any further comments from anyone in the committee or from John as our staff?
No, I like the idea of taking all those things and meshing them together. Cause they all have some real neat stuff that can be meshed together and come out really nice.
Do we have a timetable?
Uh,
On when we are supposed to have, was that Templeton Council or?
Well, if you were to talk to, Grant, it would be yesterday, you know?
Yeah.
So like, I know that he wants to get things moving very quickly. I feel like starting at this pace and going consistently, because this is gonna be a monthly meeting, right, John?
As often as you would like to.
Okay, well, I don't think monthly is too overwhelming, hopefully, for this group. I wanna keep it monthly for the foreseeable future, and I see no reason why we're not going to get to a place where we can feel comfortable to make a presentation to the city council and say, this is it now, we've talked about it a lot, go back to YouTube and listen to all the meetings that we have if you want, and here it is. And then they say yes or no, or, you know, let's go forward with this. But we've had a lot of support with the city council recently on this. I don't see that it's not gonna happen.
And timing wise, there's one time could be, it would be helpful if there was some guidance enough that the council could give hey, we think this is the year, meaning next year we want to put some money into it. And then we can tie that into a ramp grant application, which is due in January. So if we could get an initial kind of idea to the council in April, and then a final idea in the fall, October, November, so that we can have it ready for a ramp grant application in January.
Okay. That can be done.
Okay. Last but not least, and I wanted to spring this on you at the end, is there anyone that would like to be or be willing to be a secretary for this group? Someone that, you know, can just, you can see my secretary work, it's bullets, it's just, you know, follow up with Grant on this and that, and it doesn't mean that you're the follow-up person, but you're submitting these to the city recorder, and it's recorded for future posterity.
I'd have to get a translator of mine.
Oh, I'm actually a little worried about my writing,
Yours makes mine look.
I'm a little worried about that.
And
Would you be willing to do that? Okay, that'd be great.
Just not for a night.
Yeah, not tonight, because I am the official secretary for tonight, just so you know. So it's taken care of for tonight, and I'm gonna get this submitted to Joyce. She'll get it all, official, but so, it sounds like Rod is willing to do that. I don't think it's gonna be too overwhelming, so, and I can help you through anything as well.
We're good.
Sounds good. All right, well, I'm ready to adjourn personally, but I wanna make sure, does anyone have anything else?
Tell me that name, possible name for that nature reserve again that I heard earlier.
Barker Nature and Historical Preserve. Because if you say park, people think it's
Ballpark or play.
mowed grass and that's it. Oh, and a little playground thing.
Yeah.
With a bench. If you call it a preserve and historical in nature, then it changes the whole.
It might stay.
Mindset,
I kinda like it.
you know, and so think about that for the next month, every day for the next month. Wake up in the morning and say Barker Nature and Historical Reserve, and make sure it keeps ringing. And then we come next month and we say, okay, yeah, that's it. But really honestly, think about it, and there might be a slightly better suggestion that just pops up and we all go, wow, that actually is really good. So let's do that. Okay, well, you know, I don't think we have to be as official as motion to adjourn, but I motion to adjourn this meeting.
Oh,
Okay, thank you.